Good afternoon. My name is Lakimba Desadier, and I am the CEO of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. I bring you greetings today from our president, Representative Laura Hall from Alabama, who is currently in session, and I have the privilege of standing in for her this afternoon. As the CEO of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, one of the largest organizations that represents Black elected officials who serve voices of more than 100 million people of color in the United States, I am honored to be here today. I'm honored to be here today also as a mother, understanding the importance of maternal mental health. Today is World Mental Health Day. Today is World Maternal Mental Health Day. And we are here today to bring awareness to the important level of poor mental health as Black mothers and children are impacted. We are also here today to discuss the promising solutions to protect maternal mental health. Joining me today are 4 Black women who share my passion and commitment to protecting the lives of Black mothers and children. Senator London Lamar. Her dedicated life and career to uplift the lives and experience of families and communities. She currently represents the 33rd Senate District as the youngest female African American legislator in this Tennessee State Senate history. As the conscience of the legislature, Senator London Lamar advocates to support strong schools, healthy families, safe neighborhoods, and maternal health. Senator Lamar also serves as the National Black Caucus of State Legislature Chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Ms. Stacey Braveboy is the Senior Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs at the March of Dimes, the leading nonprofit organization for maternal and infant health in the United States. With over 25 years of experience in public policy, government and external affairs, advocacy, and organization management, Ms. Braveboy leads the organization's efforts to advance its mission and vision through strategic policy initiatives, advocacy, campaigns, and partnerships through federal, state, and local relationships. Thank you, Stacey. Ms. Frankie Robertson is the founder and president of the Amandel Group and the social justice consulting firm that helps organizations address the social and political determinants of health that directly impact health of Black mothers. Ms. Robertson knows from personal and professional experience that the issue that impact Black mothers is national. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Britt. And last but not least, Ms. Jay Wilson is the founder and CEO of Melanated Moms, a global advocacy and community engagement social and enterprise for moms and women across the melanated spectrum. I love that. Melanated Moms incorporated DEI methods across race, ethnicity, gender identity, and culture and language into their community engagement events, workshops, trainings, and classes. Ms. Wilson also serves as a licensed nurse. Oh, wow, over 20 years. Thank you for your service, Ms. Wilson. I will defer now to our moderator, Ms. Senator London Lamar. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Lakimba, for the introduction. And I'm very excited to be joining you all today for this important discussion on maternal mental health. Trust me, not only is maternal health and the mental capacity of our mothers something that's very important to me, but I'm also experiencing it real time with the 8-month-old now and all the things that go on in this postpartum process for me in this first year. And so not only am I putting this issue on the forefront of my legislative agenda, but I'm also living it in real time. And it's very excited to be able to engage in these conversations with professionals who we're going to hear from about this important issue, because I know it not only impacts me, but tons of women out there, especially Black women, as we go through many of the trials and tribulations of motherhood, coupled with the intersection of many societal implications of housing issues, economic inequities, food deserts, the skyrocketing price of childcare, not having support in the home, and also domestic violence is something that's impacting Black communities, all contributing to the mental health of mothers, and on top of trying to care for children as well, our most vulnerable populations. So with that being said, I'm ready to jump into an exciting conversation about this issue. And we're going to start off with Ms. Brayboy of March of Dimes. And I want to bring her in to ask her some questions about maternal health. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Senator Lamar?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start off with a question, kind of just addressing the maternal mortality rates here in this country. And my question to you is that the United States right now has the highest maternal mortality rate of all the industrialized countries in our nation and around the world. Specifically, and this is just really starking for me, the maternal mortality rate of the United States is 3 times of that higher than France and Canada, but France and Canada are the next 2 highest ones. So that fact right there was also very striking. So why is this, and why is the maternal mortality rate in the United States so much higher compared to other high-income countries?
Well, Senator Lamar, first, let me tell you congratulations on the new bundle of joy. I think we have, I've also kind of gone through that same experience. My little girl is a little older, but congratulations to you. And let me do this first to say, I appreciate the opportunity to join you and the other members that are on this panel to talk about this important topic. And you're the best person. Thank you for your leadership in the state on this. You're correct that the U.S. remains among the most dangerous developed nations of childbirth, particularly for families of color. And so let me help kind of paint a picture and set the stage for this conversation. The U.S. maternal mortality rate has doubled from 1991 to 2014. And it's gone up at 10.3 per 100,000 live births in 1991 to 23.8 in 2014. So every 12 hours, I want us to think about this. Every 12 hours, a woman dies from pregnancy-related causes. In 2020, we had nearly 900 women to die due to pregnancy-related causes. And that's a record high number. We've looked at our annual reports. We've looked at over 2 million women in maternity care deserts. And you mentioned this, maternity care deserts, where there's no access to OBGYNs, obstetric hospitals, or providers, obstetrics providers. And so the data is important. It's an important aspect for us to understand when we're looking and talking about maternal issues, and we're talking about maternal mental health, and trying to look at how we determine solutions that we can address across this country. And so here at March of Dimes, we published in 2023 a document, a report that was called Where You Live Matters. And it looks at our maternity care deserts, and it looks at how we need to address the access of care and access of equity through this report. And so I'm going to encourage all of the viewers to please take some time, go in, review on that report. In that report, we have over 5.6 million women. We've been able to determine 5.6 million women live in counties where there's no access or there's limited access to maternity care services. And this is forcing families to find new ways to get the care that they need. Our report actually finds that women tend to struggle when it comes to access and care before and during their pregnancy journey. And all of that contributes to the 4% of the decreasing that we're starting to see in birthing hospitals all in 1 year. And so things we've got to be able to kind of look at. And so let me just share with you just some more data that comes from March of Dimes. What we know is that in 2018, hospitals in 1 in 10 counties That's 1 in 10 counties in the states that many of our viewers are actually representing. They struggle because there's a loss of care across, and there's a decrease, not only a loss of care for OBGYNs providing that service, but you add that on top of them being in rural maternity care, not only rural and urban maternity care deserts. So it's true. I mean, Senator, where people live, it truly matters. It impacts their ability to have I'm going to say, a successful and healthy pregnancy and a successful health and birth outcome and postpartum journey.
Absolutely. And I can totally attest to that. Here in Tennessee, they have the majority party, which tends to be Republican, have denied the expansion of federal funds to expand healthcare access. And because of that, we have had over 16 rural hospitals closed, creating over an hour drives for some mothers to access care for themselves and their babies, which is why I pivoted to a lot of support around doulas to help mitigate many of those maternity care deserts, as we talked about. And so we also got to talk about how rural and urban areas do not have the professionals. Furthermore, the abortion bans we see predominantly in the South, where the larger conglomerate of Black legislators represent, that's an additional burden of mental health issues, because you think about mothers with health complications during pregnancies, and Black women are more than likely to have health complications, hence why I lost my first baby. Because of that, doctors are now more stressed and mothers are now more stressed, because if it becomes a choice between their life and a child, they may not be able to choose either one. It's become a huge problem, and thank you for bringing light to many of those issues. My next question is, I'm gonna bring in Ms. J. Wilson to the conversation. Ms. Wilson is a personal friend of mine. I remember meeting Ms. Wilson at a maternal health conference a couple of years ago, and I was so moved about the work that she was doing with melanated moms, and just how she was advocating for Black women in the New Jersey, DC, New York area, and I was thoroughly impressed with her. So I invited her to our NBCSL conference in Las Vegas 2 years ago to present alongside with me around the work she's doing around maternal health and melanated moms. And again, I continue to be impressed with her work and how she's made an imprint on the country with the melanated moms. So Jay, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you? So good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. And thank you for once again joining us at NBCSL to have this important conversation about Black motherhood. And we just heard some good stuff from Ms. Brayboy, but I want to keep the conversation going and ask you a question. And my question to you is, as new treatments become available to moms suffering from poor mental health, how can legislation and policy help ensure that mothers have equitable access to care?
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to know the numbers and understand like how significant this really is. So 1 in 8 women they will experience postpartum depression at some point in their pregnancy. And we've always known that Black women are more than 50% of, Black women are more disproportionately affected by these rates and these statistics. More than 50% of these women are also going untreated. And these delays in treatment may be because of insurance. It also may be because of lack of access. But when it comes to the Black community, we also see a lot of stigma when it comes to trying to address maternal mental health or mental health in a whole. So for us, we have the opportunity of creating a new way of accessing care and really acknowledging how this is a support, right? So we are doing work to change the narrative of being vulnerable as a strength and not a weakness. Mm-hmm. And we also have seen there are a lot of states who are also meeting us and taking the charge in doing so. So there are 15 states right now that have passed different specific maternal mental health laws that are addressing awareness, screening, providing education and different programming. They're also leading different task force, and they're also implementing different ways that we can look at other marginalized moms, such as even incarcerated moms, to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. So for us, we're doing that from that policy space, right? But internally as an organization and as an individual, we're reaching out to the community. We're asking them what it is that they need, and then we're creating strategies around the feedback that they give us. So having opportunities like this where we can share it on this platform, and then we also can invite others in to participate with us and to build out coalitions. These are the ways that we're going to address it head on, and we can also plan for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's excellent. So my next question is, I'm gonna bring Ms. Well, actually, I want to stick with you. I want to ask you another question, and then I'm gonna go back to Ms. Brave Boy.
Sure.
My next question is to you is, how does mental health impact overall health, and what can Black mothers do to protect themselves against the threat of poor mental health? So kind of talk about a little more about the work that you're doing in Melanated Moms to kind of address the mental health overall impact on a woman's body.
Yeah. So overall, understanding that mental health takes a huge toll on the way that we see ourselves and also the way that we parent our children. There's so many moms that have been a part of my community that have never even been able to address the different levels of trauma or the different significant changes that they've gone through going from a woman or birthing person into being a mother or a parent, right? So when we're not addressing that and we're minimizing those feelings, we feel it, right? We feel it in the way that our body wakes up or is completely active. We feel it in the way that we're lactating or not. We also feel it in the way that we're giving our energy to our children or not, right? So if we are not aware of how to pinpoint what's going on or what resources are actually available so that people can get the support that they need, they are going to go into that space of being disproportionately impacted with mental health illness. Excuse me. Additionally, for melanated moms, what we're doing is we're actually utilizing our voice and our programming through our community center model of care, which is our perinatal case management program. And we're learning from the women. We're learning from those moms in those moments of feeling vulnerable and feeling lost. How do we create holistic support and health with you, not just for you, right? So for us, we're a women empowerment organization. So we don't want to create entitlement by just giving you the tools. We want to actually help build it with you. So this program, we've now been doing the program for about two and a half years now. And it started just from that genuine connection with moms and asking them, where are the pieces dropping? Like, where are you falling within these gaps? And how can we put the pieces together with you so that you can move from being in survival mode and now go into being more self-sufficient? And then that's going to give you the mental clarity and the capacity to take on more and to really be able to build support for yourself and your family. So when we're able to do that, we're now able to see the women start to see transformational changes within themselves. And they are also able to address the mental health issue that they may have, and not from a space of fear, but from a space of clarity and saying, this is the next step for me to be a better parent.
I love it. And mothers need that. They need that genuine, that authentic touch, somewhere that can be vulnerable. So thank you for you and your organization for providing mothers that space and those tools to do that in such a very critical time, especially postpartum. So thank you for that. I am going to bring Ms. Brayboy back to the conversation from March to Dimes. And I think is the reason why we're having this discussion about maternal mental health here in a legislative capacity is because policy also impacts our ability to help this issue. Laws and government and you know, politicians are engaged in this conversation in a real way. But oftentimes the process is very complex to understand what's available to you, what's been authorized, what hasn't. And so there was something recent that has come down, the Preemie Reauthorization Act and the Mommies Act. And we felt like this piece of legislation is important to the well-being of Black mothers. So Warren, can you explain what this act is and also talk to how public policy it contributes to the well-being of Black mothers?
Sure. And so, and Senator Lamar, let me just also echo what Ms. Wilson stated a little bit earlier, is that it is through advocacy, it is through organizations coming together to push for and calling attention to maternal mental health. And so thank you all for hosting and inviting us to participate in this conversation, but using platforms like this to be able to get the messages, get this message and messages across the country at various states and at various local levels helps us to raise awareness for such an important topic. So you asked about the Premium Reauthorization Act, and you want me to kind of address public policy. And so let me just set a little bit of a framework. And you've heard it already stated, and you know this as well. It is the state of infant and maternal health remains at a very critical level. It is at a crisis level in our country. But, there's good news. Many of the factors that influence our poor outcomes for our moms and our babies, we're able to address those. And a lot of those things are preventable, but there's work that we've got to do to be able to make the change to address it, and how we collectively are able to do it, not only through the work that you do and some of your colleagues who've joined us that are representatives from various state legislatures across the country. The solution starts with awareness. And that is making sure we're bringing awareness to the issue, and we're looking at determinations of actions that are needed to improve the outcomes for all moms and for all babies. And so these solutions have got to be a multi-pronged approach. We've got to look at ways that we can fix the crisis in this country. And when you look at the multiple steps of how we're able to address it, we got to do it through, one, advancing public policy. Two, we've got to do it through programs and funding. And that's done at the federal level and at the state level. Getting it done there is essential. And then we've got to use solutions again that will allow us to bring in our communities. March of Dimes released a national report that included recommended policies that were needed to address, positive change when it comes to maternal health and infant health. And here, there's been significant strides that we've made at the state level with our state legislators, such as you and many others, but also we continue to push for things that will help close the gap at the federal level. We've been leading and championing policy initiatives to close that gap by, one, expanding access, improving outcomes for moms and babies. We've done it through key initiatives that include, you mentioned some in the very opening of this webinar, extending Medicaid postpartum coverage for 12 months. We've got only 45 states and DC that have adopted this. And so continuing to beat the drum so that we can have all of our states to do Medicaid postpartum coverage extension to 12 months. We've got to look at doulas, providing reimbursement for doula care, both public and private. We know that there have been 13 states via Medicaid and another small number of states for private that have looked at that. We've got to look at ways using policy to create paid family leave and supporting paid family leave. We know that 14 states, our data shows us that 14 states and several states have enhanced their policies when it's come to state employees and their teachers. So we're trending in the right direction, but there's still more work to do. We've got to look at policy solutions that are going to address telehealth and how we're able to expand that, especially as we start to talk about the maternity care desert issue that is going across America in rural and in some urban areas. And so those are things that we can do from a policy side. But let me talk about, you asked me another part of that, a second part of that question was the Premium Reauthorization Act. And so the health of moms of babies, we all know, is interconnected. And so March of Dimes is continuing to champion federal legislation for reauthorization. I want to say that again. There's a law that was in place. We just need to have it reauthorized. We've had some movement that has taken place on Capitol Hill, but we still got to get it through another chamber. And so it's encouraging your listeners and your viewers to make sure that you're calling on your congressional members to be able to get this reauthorized so we can get it back into law. In the Premium Act, it addresses federal government's commitment to preventing preterm birth and what those consequences are as one of the leading contributors to death. And so improving the maternal mortality and morbidity data looking at surveillance and prioritizing our policy recommendations as we relates to the maternity mortality review committees, or things that we find and believe are essential to how we address this crisis. And so there are several other key pieces of legislation that I could highlight that are taking place at the federal level. And so we're working not only at the federal level, but we're working harder within our states and through partnerships with senators and representatives such as yourself. Let me just highlight one or two additional ones. We have been able to successfully get PMDA, and I won't just use acronyms. It's for the Preventing Maternal Deaths Act of 2023. When you look at that, that's an act that strengthens and expands federal support for our maternity mortality review committees, which are important. And those committees allow us to better protect women throughout their pregnancy, through their childbirth, and through their postpartum. And also it assists in narrowing the racial disparities with those outcomes. And so two other key pieces of legislation that I kind of just definitely want to be able to touch on is 2023. It was the Light for Maternal Mental Health and Substance Use Disorders. And in that legislation, it talked about authorization for maternal mental health hotline at HHS. We looked at reauthorizing through that legislation maternal mental health task force. All are important here. It was also ways that states were granted programs that would support pregnancy and postpartum women who were suffering with addiction. And then finally, another piece of federal legislation that I just want to highlight is the Triumph for New Moms Act. It's something that you also mentioned. And what that act does is creates a federal maternal mental health task force to identify existing programs and best practices that are taking place all across the country and creating a national strategy, coming up with ways that we can address these issues and make recommendations to our governors and be able to effectively utilize federal resources that are taking place. So there are a number of key pieces of legislation highlighting the Preemie Act, but I definitely kind of wanted to go through what is happening at the federal and at the state level to kind of continue to raise awareness about it. But more importantly, when we talk about the Preemie Act, encouraging everyone to hold your elected officials in Congress responsible and ask them to support passage of the reauthorization, I can't stress that enough, of the Preemie Act. Thank you.
That's awesome. And it being campaign season, many members of Congress are running for re-election. So as you go to the polls, please talk to them about these pieces of legislation and let them know that I want to vote for you, but I need you to support this piece of legislation. And that is how you get a politician to move. So thank you for that. And guys, as you see as a state legislator, I promise you all the work that's going on the federal level allows me to help do the work on a lower level. This year I passed legislation on the governor's desk, if he hasn't already signed it, to expand members of our maternal mortality review committee to be community-based organizations. They are medical heavy, but the people on the ground also deserve to contribute to these conversations. So we do have community-based organizations there now will be authorized to join these boards, and so that they can be involved in these conversations around maternal health, maternal mental health, and addressing many of the disparities on the state level. So that's just a small example of how federal legislation impacts and allow us to do work on the state level. So one of my final questions I'm going to pivot to is talking about something in the Black community, which is very taboo. And then it's a very sensitive subject, but we got to address it because it impacts the mental health of mothers. And that is the idea of fathers being involved and how they contribute to the mental health of Black mothers. As we know, a father being involved in our child's life, especially an African-American child, is so important. And also being more involved in the pregnancy and postpartum process for mothers is very, very important. I know for me, in my first situation, I remember the father of my child was very mean, and it contributed to the stress and my preeclampsia of why I have high blood pressure. And I knew that my mental health would have to be prioritized in my new efforts in my relationship to be happy. And I would say I'm in a so much more supportive relationship. And I definitely think that contributed to me having a happy, healthier pregnancy, because I had a partner that was present in my child's life. So Jay, you and I talk about this a lot, fathers, and we've had our own personal conversations about stuff we done went through. So I felt like you would be the perfect person to kind of weigh in on this particular question. And so what I really want to ask you is, and you know my situation, I know yours, and it's like, how can Black fathers and other men support the mental well-being of mothers? And can you kind of talk to that? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So this definitely hits home for me. In my marriage, I am now divorced. I went through a very stressful pregnancy, or several pregnancies. I am a 4-time survivor of preeclampsia myself. So that definitely touches to who I am and, my motherhood journey as well. I'm a stillbirth mom. And I had no idea that any of those things would shape the work that I'm doing right now. Right. But having a supportive partner, particularly a supportive father, being present and understanding like the complexities of navigating pregnancy, dealing with pregnancy complications, the way that it also impacts your baby, your fetus, all of those things fathers need to be absolutely cognizant of, right? I think we are well past the evolution of fathers only being there in the delivery room, smoking a cigar. We need our dads to be fully present. When we're talking about these statistics, Black women dying on a national rate 3 to 4 times the rate of white women. And once we start going more insular and going state by state, we're seeing the rates are going some of them are as high as 12 times the rate. We need to have more fathers into these conversations. They are a part of the birth, right? They're a part of the entire process. And for moms to carry all of the weight of the pregnancy, the complications, the birth, the rearing of that child is just not, it's imbalance. It is not equitable whatsoever. And for fathers who are often saying that they want to be present, they want to be active, when we give them that space, they don't always take it, right? So I know for us with Melanated Moms, one big way that we've been able to push these fathers to the forefront is giving them that space. So we actually started an initiative called Melanated Dads, and they actually have a group, supportive virtual support group called the Father Forum, where they actually have these conversations. They talk about the different complex needs of men becoming fathers, but we also create blended conversations where dads can talk to other moms and they can ask those hard questions, not from a space of ridicule or finger pointing, but literally understanding, how can I be your support? How can I be the community that you need in order to get through this pregnancy? And also how that does impact their mental health and well-being. Fathers are usually the first people who will be able to see the different changes. And if they are not understanding of what is going on, then they actually can't contribute to anything, right? So we want to give them that space to do so. And we also want to continue to hear from them. So encouraging them to share their stories, encouraging them to be a part of the solution is so much better as opposed to, being ancillary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned like the solutions you have to this issue, because maternal mental health is not just only a woman thing, but it's also a father thing too. Like we all grow through challenges when it comes to having children, and we do have to prioritize Black men's health. Especially when it comes to their responsibility to being a provider and how to show up and all the other issues of society impacting them. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and big shout out to our melanated dads, the dads who are showing up, loving on their babies. We see you and we love you. So I wanted to jump back to Miss Brayboy to kind of talk about some examples of what states are doing to improve the maternal mental health, because we are an organization that prioritizes state legislators. So we talked about how the federal government has set a standard, but what are some of the states doing that we should continue to support and expand in our respective states?
So, Senator Lamar, let me just share. You all are doing some fantastic work. And we have a team at March of Dimes that focuses on federal, and also we have a team that focuses on states. And so we've been instrumental in tracking and working very closely with your peers across the country. Some examples, so I'm glad you asked, because it's important to highlight all the wonderful work you all are doing. And so collectively as a team, we're able to move the needle. When I say team, I'm talking about the team in terms of our policymakers, our coalition organizations, and just our advocates, right? And just constituents and voters. So in Alabama, in Mississippi, currently they're holding bold conversations about Medicaid expansion and closing the coverage gap. In North Carolina, this is something that your colleagues in North Carolina, they were able to implement last year at the state level. In New Jersey is one of the only states in the country to reduce its rate of preterm birth. And let me just say that again. New Jersey is one of only a few states, or only one state, that has increased and reduced its rate of preterm birth. And they've created a maternal infant health authority, which has been built in Trenton, New Jersey. And they're looking at strategies to improve Black maternal health. I want to definitely highlight Georgia. Georgia's leading the way. Georgia's kind of doing this through its new funding for home visits in rural areas. They're doing it through increasing the number of their OBGYNs in rural areas and their coverages. They're doing this through their partnerships, through legislation, and working very closely with Morehouse School of Medicine. Want to make sure I highlight the wonderful state, looking at Louisiana and Tennessee. Louisiana passed legislation that allowed private insurance companies and programs to cover doula services. And the Louisiana governor signed an executive order that allowed state employees to be able to have paid family leave. And so they're looking at creating several different laws that address maternal mental health and address mental health in the state of Louisiana. And then finally, another example I'd share with you is that there's tremendous work that's happening, as you know, in Tennessee, and strides that are being made in doula legislation. And that's been over the past several years. I mean, with you leading the legislation regarding doula resolutions and certifications, and looking at the doula advisory committees, all things that you're championing there in the state. And then also just recently looking at the remote ultrasound legislation that is moving there in the state. So also how you're looking at paid family leave. But I could go on about what you're doing in Tennessee, but just wanted to make sure that I took the opportunity to highlight what you all are doing as state legislators across the country. And so it's going to take all of us, along with our partners, along with our advocacy organizations and community organizations, to move the needle. So I applaud those that have joined and those that will continue to join. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And thank you to all our participants who've joined. I will tell you just from experience that the world is watching. Black maternal health is on the forefront of all our policy issues. It's on the forefront of the issues that we're talking about on the news, that we're talking about in the presidential election on the federal level, and even on the states. And it's because of the work that Ms. Brayboy and Ms. Wilson, and the ability for us to have organizations like NBCSL to continue to uplift this conversation. And ultimately, I want to give a big shout out to our Vice President, Kamala Harris, for putting this conversation on the forefront on a national level before she became VP, while she was still U.S. Senator. And so we want to follow in her footsteps to keep shouting out about the importance of Black maternal health and Black maternal mental health in our communities, because Black women are the mothers of the earth, and we carry the world on our shoulders, from policy to organization to mothers to just everything. And so thank you to the panelists for joining us today. It is an honor to share the stage with you again. I hope that everyone's watching. Donate to your organizations, get involved, show up and support you, and spread the word about the education and information that you are providing. Thank you to NBCSL for allowing me to continue to bring this conversation to the forefront. Big shout out to Desmond and President Hall. And ultimately, I want to allow us to close with our CEO, Ms. Lakimba, to say a special thank you to some of our sponsors. But to all of y'all watching, Please continue to support us. Thank you for engaging this conversation. And LaKimba, you have the floor.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you, everyone, for taking time for this impactful conversation. We've heard information from advocacy to public policy to even personal conversations, because we were blessed to have strong, beautiful Black mothers to articulate the importance of maternal mental health and its impact on the Black community. NBCSL could not do these type of educational forums without our corporate roundtable partners. And today we'd like to acknowledge and lift up and thank Biogen and SAGE for partnering with the National Black Caucus of State Legislators on the importance of maternal mental health in the Black community. I hope you learned something today. I hope you got something from this information. And not only do I hope you learn something, I hope you take it and make some action with this. Your voice is important, and it's because of you we can move forward in educating our communities and empowering people that are underserved. Thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful day.